Captain Ethan Miller stood at the viewport of the USS Horizon, watching as the massive Calrathi station grew larger against the backdrop of unfamiliar stars. After 6 months of travel and years of preparation, humanity's first official diplomatic mission to the Calrathi hegemony was about to begin. "Nervous, Captain?" asked Olivia Wright, the mission's science officer. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun, her uniform crisp and perfect. Ethan smiled but kept his eyes on the approaching station. "Just eager to get started, Dr. Wright." In no truth, he felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. The Vordax Empire was expanding aggressively across 3 sectors, and Earth needed allies. The Calrathi, with their advanced weapons and warrior culture, would make powerful friends, if they could be convinced humans were worth the trouble. "Final approach in 5 minutes, announced the pilot's voice over the comm system. Ethan turned to face his team gathered in the observation lounge. Besides Olivia, there was Mason Clark, a compact, muscular man who served as security chief, Lisa Summers, their diplomatic advisor with her calming presence, and Kate Rodriguez, intelligence officer whose sharp eyes missed nothing. "Remember," Ethan said, "the Calrathi respect strength above all else. They're bigger, stronger, and have natural armor we can only dream about. But we're not here to impress them with our muscles." Mason nodded. "We impress them with our minds. And our unity," added Lisa. "Don't let them separate us or provoke individual reactions." The docking procedure was smooth and efficient. When the airlock doors finally opened, Ethan led his team into the Calrathi station, taking their first breaths of the slightly sulfur-scented air that the aliens preferred. Waiting for them was a delegation of 4 Calrathi warriors, each standing, nearly 8 feet tall. Their bodies were covered in natural plate-like armor that shimmered with a blue-green iridescence under the station lights. Their 4 eyes, 2 large primary eyes and 2 smaller ones above them, examined the humans, with obvious disdain. The largest Calrathi, wearing elaborate insignia that marked him as Admiral Gorkal, stepped forward. His translator device hummed briefly before he spoke in a rumbling bass that made Ethan's chest vibrate. "Welcome to Calrath Prime Station, humans. We have prepared appropriate quarters for your smaller forms." Ethan stepped forward, offering the formal greeting they had practiced. "Admiral Gorkal, the United Earth Government thanks you for your hospitality. We bring greetings and the hope of mutual cooperation against common threats." The Admiral's upper eyes narrowed slightly. "Yes, the Vordax, we have fought them on 17 fronts. Their exoskeletons make formidable armor, but they break nicely under Calrathi's strength." One of the other Calrathi, wearing the markings of a security commander, looked down at Mason and made a sound that the translator didn't catch but sounded remarkably like a snort. "I am Commander Kravzar," the alien said, towering over Mason. "I will be responsible for your safety while aboard, though I wonder what use your kind could be against the Vordax when you look like you would snap in a strong wind." Mason remained perfectly composed, his face neutral as he replied, "Thank you for your concern, Commander. We look forward to sharing capabilities during our stay." Admiral Gorkal made a gesture and the tension eased slightly. "Come. We will show you to your quarters. Tomorrow we begin the exchange of information and evaluation of potential alliance terms." As they walked through the massive corridors of the station, Ethan noticed how other Calrathi stopped to stare at them. Some pointed, others whispered behind armored hands. He caught fragments of translated conversation. So small. No armor at all. What use could they be? Soft skins. Kate moved closer to Ethan and whispered. Their body language suggests curiosity mixed with contempt. No overt hostility, but definitely no respect either. The next morning, the human delegation gathered in their shared common area. Each person had slept on beds clearly designed for the much larger Calrathi, making them feel even smaller in this alien environment. "Everyone ready?" Ethan asked, looking at his team. "As ready as we'll ever be," Mason said, finishing his morning stretches. He had been up for 2 hours already, going through his daily training routine. A loud buzz announced their Calrathi escort waiting outside, When the door slid open, Commander Kravzar stood there with 2 guards. Admiral Gorkal wishes to begin the military exchange portion of our discussions, Kravzar said. He believes understanding each other's combat capabilities will help establish the value of any potential alliance. Ethan nodded. We're ready to observe and share. The Kalrathi led them through wide corridors to a massive training arena. The space was easily the size of 4 football fields, with various training stations set up throughout. Hundreds of Kalrathi warriors were engaged in different forms of combat practice. Admiral Gorkal approached, his armor gleaming under the bright lights. Captain Miller, we believe in showing rather than merely talking. Today you will observe. Our warriors train, and tomorrow your people will demonstrate human combat methods. For the next 4 hours, the human delegation watched as Kalrathi warriors demonstrated their combat prowess. They lifted weights that would crush a human. They practiced with weapons that required 3 human men to even hold properly. They engaged in sparring matches that looked more like small wars, with the natural armor of the aliens clanging like metal as they struck each other with incredible force. Kate leaned over to Ethan. They're strong, but predictable. All power, little finesse. Ethan gave her a warning glance. Even whispers could be overheard by the sensitive hearing of their hosts. At midday, they broke for a meal. The food was mostly protein, huge slabs of something that looked like meat but had the color of eggplant. Tomorrow will be interesting, said Kravzar, sitting across from Mason. I look forward to seeing how such small creatures train for war. Mason smiled politely. We have different approaches, but they serve us well. Kravzar made a dismissive gesture. Without natural armor or superior strength, what approach could possibly work? You'll see tomorrow, Lisa interjected smoothly. Cultural exchanges like this help us understand each other's strengths. The next morning, the human team set up in a corner of the training arena. A crowd of Kalrathi warriors had gathered to watch, including Admiral Gorkal and his senior officers. Mason began with a demonstration of calisthenics, push-ups, sit-ups, and other bodyweight exercises. The Kalrathi watched with confusion. Why waste energy moving your body in such ways? One warrior asked loudly. Next, Olivia demonstrated yoga positions, explaining how they improved flexibility and body awareness. The Kalrathi actually laughed, their rumbling sounds echoing through the arena. They look like dying grazers, Kravzar commented, generating more laughter. When Mason and Kate showed Tai Chi movements slowly flowing through forms with precise control, the mockery grew louder. Is this dancing? Called out a Kalrathi officer. Where is the combat? Finally, Mason and Lisa demonstrated basic judo throws and Brazilian jiu-jitsu positions. They moved slowly to show the principles, explaining leverage and momentum. The Kalrathi watched with growing impatience. Admiral Gorkal stepped forward. Captain Miller, we have observed enough. These movements may serve some purpose for recreation, but they are not combat training. My warriors train to crush enemies, not to dance and pose. Ethan maintained his diplomatic composure. Admiral, these exercises build the foundations for our combat techniques. They develop the skills that allow smaller opponents to defeat larger ones. Kravzar snorted loudly. That is not possible. Size and strength determine victory. Perhaps a demonstration would help, Mason suggested calmly. The Admiral's 4 eyes narrowed. Yes, I believe that would be educational for all of us. As they left the training area, the human team could hear the Kalrathi warriors still laughing and mimicking the movements they had seen, twisting their large bodies in exaggerated parodies of the human exercises. That went well, Kate muttered under her breath. Ethan sighed. Phase 1 complete. Now we just need to show them what these dances can actually do. Ethan nodded slightly. This mission would be even harder than he had anticipated. The Kalrathi didn't just see humans as different, they saw them as fundamentally inferior. As they reached their quarters, Admiral Gorkal turned to address them one final time. Rest well, humans. Tomorrow, we will see what your species truly has to offer the hegemony, if anything. The door slid shut behind them, leaving the human delegation alone in their new temporary home among the stars. That evening, the human delegation gathered in their quarters to discuss the day's events. The memory of Calrathi laughter still rang in their ears. "We need to change our approach," Ethan said, pacing the room. "They won't respect us until they see results, not just practice." Kate nodded, but her attention was divided. She had been reviewing station security feeds on her tablet, a privilege granted as part of the exchange program. Something had caught her eye. "Captain, I think we have a bigger problem," she said, placing her tablet on the table. The screen showed grainy footage of a shadowy figure moving through a restricted area of the station. "This doesn't match Calrathi movement patterns." They gathered around to look. The figure was smaller than a Calrathi, but moved with strange, jerky motions. "Vordax?" Lisa asked, her voice low. "I think so," Kate replied. "Look at the way it moves. That's consistent with their exoskeleton structure. And there's more." She swiped to another image. "These are from different sections of the station, taken over the past 3 days. Ethan's face grew serious. "You think they've already infiltrated the station?" It wasn't a question. "At least a small team," Kate confirmed. "Maybe 5 or 6 based on these images." Mason frowned. "We need to tell Admiral Gorkal." "Not yet," Ethan said quickly. "We don't know who to trust. Remember the intelligence briefing? There's a faction within the Calrathi military that believes an alliance with the Vordax would be more advantageous than one with humans." Olivia spoke up. "If we bring this to Gorkal and he's part of that faction, then we'd be revealing that we know about the infiltration," Lisa finished. "We'd be putting ourselves at risk. But if he's not involved and there really is a Vordax infiltration team here, the entire station could be in danger." Mason argued. Ethan made his decision. "We gather more evidence first. Kate, keep monitoring the feeds. Mason, I want you to increase security awareness without being obvious. Lisa, try to get information from your diplomatic contacts about station security protocols." "And me?" Olivia asked. "Keep up appearances. We need the Calrathi to think we're focused solely on the diplomatic mission." The next morning, tensions were running high as they headed to another cultural exchange session. When they entered the conference room, they found Commander Kravzar waiting with several other Calrathi officers. "Captain Miller," Kravzar said, his tone even more dismissive than usual, "my warriors have been discussing your training methods. We believe we understand the problem now." "The problem?" Ethan asked carefully. "Yes, your species lacks natural weapons, so you create these dances to compensate. It is admirable in a sad way." Mason stepped forward. "Our methods are practical, Commander. They've proven effective in combat countless times." Kravzar towered over Mason, all 4 eyes fixed on the human. "Against other softskins, perhaps, but against warriors like the Calrathi or enemies like the Vordax, your fancy movements would be useless." The tension in the room was palpable. Kate caught Ethan's eye and gave a tiny nod. She had spotted another unauthorized movement on the security feed this morning. "Perhaps," Lisa said, stepping between Mason and Kravzar. "We could arrange a small demonstration. Not a real fight, of course, but a controlled exchange to show the principles." Kravzar's mouth parts twisted in what the humans had learned was a smile. "Yes, I would welcome that. In fact," he looked directly at Mason, "I would be honored to participate in such an exchange with your security chief." The way he said, "honored," made it clear it was anything but. Ethan saw the trap but also the opportunity. "We would need to establish clear rules first." "Of course," Kravzar agreed too quickly. "No permanent damage, just a friendly exhibition." As they discussed the details, Mason moved seaward of the upcoming exhibition match spread quickly through the station. By dinner time, every Calrathi warrior knew that Commander Kravzar would face the human security chief in combat. Betting pools formed, with odds heavily favoring Kravzar. Most bets focused on how quickly the human would be defeated. In the human quarters, Dr. Olivia Wright ran a medical scanner over Mason while the others discussed strategy. "You're sure you want to go through with this?" Ethan asked. "We could find another way to gain their respect." Mason stayed still as Olivia checked his vital signs. "This is the fastest way. Besides, I've been studying Kalrathi physiology since we got here." "But you've never actually fought one," Lisa pointed out. "The physical differences are substantial. Their natural armor alone gives them a huge advantage." Mason nodded. "I know, that's why I won't try to match strength with strength. I'll use their expectations against them." Olivia put away her scanner. "Mason's in perfect health, Captain. But Lisa is right about the physical differences. The Kalrathi have reinforced bone structures and multiple layers of muscle tissue. Even their weakest warrior could overpower our strongest by sheer force. Which is exactly why our techniques evolved the way they did," Mason said. "Humans have always had to find ways to defeat stronger opponents." Kate entered the room, closing the door quickly behind her. "I've got the latest security feed data," she said, her voice low. "Definitely Vordax. I caught one accessing an environmental control panel in Section 14. Ethan frowned. What would they want with environmental controls? "Nothing good," Kate replied. "But I can't alert station security without revealing I've been monitoring areas outside our authorized zones." "Focus on the immediate problem," Ethan decided. "Mason, are you ready for tomorrow?" "As ready as I'll ever be," Mason said, standing up and stretching. "I need rest now. The match is scheduled for Oro 900 station time." The next morning, Mason woke early. He went through his warm-up routine slowly, focusing on his breathing and mental state. The others watched quietly, respecting his concentration. When he finished, Lisa approached him. "Remember, this isn't just about winning, it's about showing them a different way of thinking about combat." Mason nodded. "I understand. It's about education, not domination." They made their way to the training arena where the match would take place. Already, hundreds of Kalrathi had gathered to watch. Their excited chittering filled the massive space. In a preparation room adjacent to the arena, they found Kravzar warming up. The Kalrathi commander was punching a heavy training bag, with enough force to make the entire rack shake. Each impact sounded like thunder. Kravzar noticed them and stopped. "Ah, the human arrives. I hope you are not having second thoughts." Mason shook his head. "Not at all. I'm looking forward to our exchange." Kravzar's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Exchange? This will be very one-sided, I'm afraid, but do not worry. Our medical technology can repair most injuries." Admiral Gorkal entered the room, his elaborate armor gleaming under the lights. "The exhibition will begin in 10 minutes. I expect both participants to remember this is a demonstration, not actual combat." The Admiral's gaze lingered on Kravzar. "Some of my officers believe this match is unwise. They fear serious injury to our human guest." "I'll be fine, Admiral," Mason assured him. "In fact, I hope this match will change some perspectives on both sides." Gorkal made a gesture that might have been skepticism. "We shall see. The rules are simple. No weapons, no permanent damage. The match ends when one participant submits or is unable to continue." As the Admiral left, Ethan pulled Mason aside. "Be careful. I think the Admiral is genuinely concerned, which means Kravzar might not hold back as much as expected." Mason nodded, then began his final mental preparations. He closed his eyes, visualizing the techniques he would use, the ways he would redirect Kravzar's strength and momentum. A loud horn sounded, signaling it was time. "That's our cue," Mason said, opening his eyes. "Let's show them what humans can do." Loser to Kate. "Anything new?" he whispered. "The infiltrators accessed the primary weapons control hub last night," she replied under her breath. "Whatever they're planning, it's happening soon." Mason nodded slightly. "Then let's hope this exhibition happens sooner." Across the room, the Palk's Kalrathi warriors were already placing bets on how quickly Kravzar would defeat the human. Their laughter echoed off the walls as they mimicked the human dances they had seen the day before, completely unaware of the danger lurking within their own station. The exhibition arena was packed with Kalrathi spectators. Word had spread quickly about the match between Kravzar and Mason. Nearly every warrior on the station had come to witness what they expected would be the human's humiliation. "Admiral, Gorkal sat in a raised observation platform with Ethan and the rest of the human delegation. The Admiral's 4 eyes glinted with anticipation. "Your security chief shows courage, Captain Miller." "That is something we respect," the Admiral said. Ethan nodded. "Courage is universal, Admiral, but so are misconceptions." Below them, Mason entered, the arena wearing simple black exercise clothes. He looked tiny compared to the vast space around him. A murmur ran through the crowd as they saw his lack of protective gear. Then Kravzar entered from the opposite side. The Kalrathi commander wore light combat armor over his natural plating, making his already impressive form look even more intimidating. The crowd cheered as he raised his arms in acknowledgement. "Your man will be crushed," a Kalrathi officer said to Olivia. "Why does he not wear protection?" "He doesn't need it," she replied simply. In the center of the arena, an official explained the rules. No weapons, no strikes to the eyes or throat. The match would end with submission or inability to continue. Mason and Kravzar faced each other. The size difference was striking. The Kalrathi stood nearly double Mason's height and triple his width. "I will try not to break you, human," Kravzar said, loud enough for the front rows to hear, "but accidents happen in combat." Mason bowed slightly. "I appreciate your concern." The signal was given and Kravzar immediately charged forward. He moved with surprising speed for his size, arms outstretched to grapple the smaller human. Instead of backing away, Mason stepped toward the charge. At the last possible moment, he pivoted, using his hip as a fulcrum. His hands gripped Kravzar's extended arm, and with perfect timing he redirected the Kalrathi's momentum. The crowd gasped as Kravzar went flying over Mason's shoulder, his massive body slamming into the arena floor with a thunderous crash. For a moment there was complete silence in the arena. Kravzar rose quickly, his 4 eyes wide with confusion. He circled more cautiously now, feinting with one arm before lunging with the other. Mason blocked the feint and ducked under the lunge. With precise movements, he grabbed the Kalrathi's wrist and applied pressure to specific points, using an Aikido technique modified for Kalrathi physiology. Kravzar found himself being guided to the ground by what felt like an invisible force, his own strength somehow working against him. He tried to resist but ended up on one knee. Mason released him and stepped back, allowing the Kalrathi to stand. The crowd was utterly silent now, all mockery gone. Even Admiral Gorkal leaned forward, his full attention on the match. "What trickery is this?" Kravzar demanded, circling again. "No tricks," Mason replied calmly. "Just physics and leverage." Frustrated, Kravzar launched a series of powerful punches. Each blow would have shattered concrete, but none connected. Mason slipped past each attack with minimal movement, like water flowing around rocks. When Kravzar overextended on a punch, Mason executed a perfect judo sweep. The Kalrathi's legs went out from under him and he crashed down again, harder this time. "Enough playing," Kravzar growled, rising with fire in his eyes. He charged once more, but this time when Mason moved to redirect him, Kravzar adjusted his attack. His massive hand caught Mason's arm. "Now I have you," he roared triumphantly, but Mason didn't resist the grip. Instead, he moved with it, stepping into Kravzar's space. Using Brazilian jiu-jitsu principles, he secured the Kalrathi's arm in a joint lock, while using his body weight and position to disrupt Kravzar's balance. Despite the strength difference, Kravzar found himself unable to maintain his footing. He toppled forward, and Mason. The arena remained silent as Kravzar struggled against Mason's hold. The Kalrathi commander's face showed a mix of pain, confusion, and growing respect. Just as Kravzar opened his mouth to respond, alarm sirens blared. Throughout the station, red emergency lights began flashing, bathing the arena in an eerie glow. "Station alert. Security breach in multiple sectors. All warriors to battle stations," announced a computerized voice. Mason immediately released his hold and helped Kravzar to his feet. "I think our match will have to wait." In the observation platform, Ethan's communication device beeped urgently. Kate's voice came through clearly despite the alarms. "Captain, it's happening. The Vordax have taken control of weapon systems in Section 12. They're shutting down security barriers between sections. Admiral Gorkal turned to Ethan, his 4 eyes narrowed suspiciously. You knew of this threat? We had suspicions based on security footage, Ethan admitted. We weren't sure who we could trust. The Admiral's face hardened, but before he could respond, another explosion rocked the station. The lights flickered. Primary power grid damaged, reported the computer voice. Switching to emergency systems. Kravzar joined them on the platform, his earlier animosity forgotten in the face of a common enemy. Admiral, reports indicate Vordax forces have breached containment in the lower levels. They're moving toward Central Command. How many? Demanded the Admiral. At least 30 confirmed, possibly more. Gorkal turned to his officers. Secure Central Command, deploy combat teams to all critical systems. He looked at Ethan. Captain Miller, I suggest your team remain here under guard for your own safety. With the respect, Admiral, Mason said as he reached the platform. We can help. We know Vordax tactics and weaknesses. The station shook with another explosion, closer this time. The crowd of spectators was already rushing toward exits, Kalrathi warriors hurrying to their battle stations. The Admiral hesitated only a moment. Very well. But you stay with Commander Kravzar's team. As they left the arena, the station's internal communication system went offline. Emergency barriers began closing randomly throughout the corridors, separating groups of defenders. They're using our security systems against us, Kravzar growled as they ran through the halls. When they reached a junction, an emergency barrier suddenly slammed down, cutting Ethan, Mason, Olivia, Kate, and Lisa off from Kravzar and his warriors. Commander, Ethan called through the thick barrier. We cannot raise it without Central Command access, Kravzar's muffled voice replied. Continue to Section 8. We will find another route and meet you there. Before they could respond, the sounds of battle erupted from Kravzar's side of the barrier. We need to move, Mason said, taking point as they headed down the only open corridor. They had gone only 20 meters when they encountered their first Vordax soldiers. 3 insectoid forms rounded the corner ahead, their exoskeletons a dark, metallic blue. Each stood as tall as a human but with 6 limbs, 4 arms and 2 legs. Their compound eyes glittered as they spotted the humans. Unarmed prey, chittered one in broken galactic standard. No weapons, Kate whispered. The security lockdown had left them without their sidearms. Mason stepped forward. Stay behind me. If more come, form a circle. The first Vordax charged, its 4 arms extended with wicked claws ready to tear human flesh. To the alien's surprise, Mason didn't retreat. Instead, he stepped into the attack, just as he had done with Kravzar. In one fluid motion, Mason trapped the creature's primary striking arm, used its momentum to spin it around, and struck precisely at the joint between exoskeleton plates. The Vordax screeched as its arm went limp. The other 2 attacked simultaneously. Olivia surprised everyone by moving forward alongside Mason. Her years of martial arts training, dismissed by the Kalrathi as dancing, now proved their worth. She executed a perfect kick to the nearest Vordax's leg joint, buckling it instantly. Lisa and Kate engaged the third, working together with coordinated strikes that confused the alien. Kate targeted the eyes while Lisa struck vulnerable connection points in the exoskeleton. In less than a minute, all 3 Vordax lay incapacitated on the floor. That won't be the last of them, Ethan said, catching his breath. We need to reach Section 8 and find Kravzar. As if in response, they heard the sounds of more chittering from both directions of the corridor. We're surrounded, Kate said, backing up against the others. Through the emergency lights, they could see at least 10, more Vordax approaching from each direction. Mason took a deep breath, centering himself. Remember your training. Use their strength against them. Target joints and weak points. The humans formed a defensive circle as the Vordax closed in, rode the fall, maintaining control of the arm and transitioning smoothly into a submission. Hold. The Kalrathi commander tried to power out, but each movement only increased the pressure on his joints. Mason had positioned himself perfectly, using leverage points that worked even against Kalrathi physiology. Pain shot through Kravzar's arm, not enough to cause damage, but enough to make his options clear. "Do you yield?" Mason asked quietly. The arena held its collective breath. The vortex closed in from both sides of the corridor, their chittering sounds echoing off the metal walls. The humans stood back to back in a tight circle, each facing outward. "Remember," Mason said quickly, "they rely on their front arms for strong attacks. The lower arms are faster but weaker." The first wave of vortex rushed them all at once. The corridor filled with the sounds of combat as the humans put their training to use. Mason moved like water, slipping between strikes and turning the aliens' momentum against them. He caught one vortex by its arm, redirected its charge into a wall, then quickly struck 3 pressure points on its exoskeleton. The alien dropped, its nervous system temporarily overloaded. Kate used her smaller size to her advantage. She ducked under swinging claws and delivered precise strikes to the thin joints between armor plates. Each hit was calculated, targeting nerve clusters that she had studied during her xenobiology training. Olivia surprised the Vordax with her flexibility. When they expected her to back away, she moved closer instead. She trapped limbs and applied joint locks that worked even on alien physiology. One Vordax found itself flipped onto its back, unable to rise as Olivia applied pressure to immobilize it. Lisa combined quick strikes with defensive moves. She blocked attacks with forearm shields, then countered with palm strikes to vulnerable areas. Her movements flowed from one form to another, the dances the Kalrathi had mocked now proving deadly effective. Even Ethan joined the fight, using basic self-defense techniques that all Earth military officers learned. He wasn't as skilled as the others, but he knew enough to protect himself and create openings for his teammates. Unnoticed by the combatants, a security camera in the corner of the corridor captured everything. In the station's security center, Admiral Gorkal and several Kalrathi officers watched in stunned silence as the unarmed humans systematically dismantled Vordax attackers twice their size. "Impossible," whispered one officer. "How are they doing this?" Gorkal didn't answer. His 4 eyes were fixed on the screen, watching as Mason executed a perfect throw that sent a Vordax crashing into 2 others. On another screen, they could see Kravzar and his team fighting their way through a different section. The Kalrathi were powerful and effective, but they took damage with each engagement. Their strategy relied on overwhelming force and endurance rather than efficiency. Back, in the corridor, the humans had defeated the first wave of attackers. Nearly 20 Vordax lay immobilized or unconscious around them. The humans were breathing hard but largely uninjured. "We need to keep moving," Ethan said. "Section 8 is 3 levels up." As they moved through the station, they encountered more Vordax. Each time they worked together to overcome the attackers, combining different martial arts techniques that complemented each other. In one large chamber, they found themselves facing a particularly massive Vordax, clearly a commander, by the markings on its exoskeleton. It carried a stun staff and wore additional armor plates. "This one's mine," Mason said, stepping forward. The Vordax commander charged, swinging its stun staff in wide arcs. Mason waited until the last moment, then dropped to the floor, sweeping the alien's legs. As the commander stumbled, Mason rose. Behind it, striking precisely at the neural cluster at the base of its neck. The commander froze, then collapsed in a heap. Throughout the station, security feeds captured the humans in action. Kalrathi warriors paused in their own battles to watch screens when they could, amazement replacing their earlier contempt. After an hour of fighting, the humans finally reached Section 8. They were tired, but triumphant, having cut through dozens of Vordax without weapons. When they pushed open the doors to the command center, they found Kravzar and his team already there. 3 days after the Vordax attack, the station had returned to normal operations. Repair crews fixed the damage, while security teams ensured no infiltrators remained. The human delegation prepared for their final meeting with the Kalrathi leadership before returning to Earth. When Ethan and his team entered the Grand Council chamber, they found it filled with Kalrathi officers and warriors. To their surprise, The aliens stood and placed their fists over their chests in a gesture of respect. Admiral Gorkal approached them, his massive form no longer seeming threatening, but rather dignified. "Captain Miller, your team has earned the respect of the Calrathi hegemony." "Thank you, Admiral," Ethan replied. "We're glad we could help defend the station." "It was more than that," Gorkal said. "You have changed our understanding of combat and training." Kravzar stepped forward. The commander's attitude had completely transformed since their first meeting. "For generations we believed that physical power was the only path to victory. Your people have shown us another way." Around the chamber, Ethan noticed many Calrathi. Warriors were now practicing movements that looked suspiciously like Tai Chi and yoga. Some pairs were even attempting basic judo throws, their large bodies moving with newfound grace. "We would like to propose a military exchange program," Admiral Gorkal announced. "Calrathi warriors to train with humans and human instructors to teach at our academies." Ethan smiled. "I think Earth would welcome that arrangement." Mason and Kravzar stood side by side watching the warriors practice. What did you call it, jujitsu?" Kravzar asked. "It uses the opponent's strength against them?" Mason nodded. "It's about leverage and position, not force. When you're smaller than your opponent, you need to be smarter about how you apply pressure." "Our young warriors are eager to learn," Kravzar admitted. "After watching the security footage of your team in combat, many have asked for instruction." Across the room, Olivia was showing a group of Calrathi a basic yoga pose to improve balance. Despite their size, the aliens followed her movements with careful attention. "Your meditation techniques," one warrior said. "They help with focus during battle and with healing afterward," Olivia explained. "Mind and body work together." Kate and Lisa were demonstrating pressure points to another group, using diagrams of Calrathi anatomy to show where their techniques could be most effective. "We've modified our training program already," a Calrathi officer told them proudly. "Less emphasis on strength building, more on flexibility and technique." As the day continued, the humans and Calrathi shared knowledge freely. The formal alliance agreement was signed with great ceremony, both sides recognizing the strength they could find together. That evening, a special demonstration was arranged. 6 humans and 6 Calrathi performed a choreographed combat form that blended both styles, the power and resilience of the Calrathi with the precision and efficiency of human martial arts. The resulting performance was beautiful and deadly, showcasing a new hybrid fighting style that took advantage of both species' strengths. When it was finished, Admiral Gorkal addressed the gathered crowd. "Today marks the beginning of a new era for the Calrathi hegemony. We have always valued strength, but now we understand that strength takes many forms." He turned to Ethan and his team. "The Vordaks thought they could defeat us by exploiting our weaknesses. Instead, they brought us to allies who showed us how to turn those weaknesses into strengths." As the humans prepared to depart the next morning, Kravzar met Mason at the docking bay. "The match we started," the Calrathi commander said. "We never finished it." Mason smiled. "Maybe next time." Kravzar made the gesture of respect. "I look forward to it, friend, though I will be practicing your techniques until then." Captain Miller looked back at the Calrathi station as their ship pulled away. What had begun with mockery had ended with mutual respect and a powerful new alliance. On the observation deck, Mason was already teaching a small group of crew members some of the modified techniques he had developed with Kravzar, a blend of human precision and Calrathi power. "Remember," he told them, "it's not about how strong you are. It's about how well you use the strength you have." As the ship accelerated toward Earth, they knew they were bringing home something more valuable than just a treaty. They were bringing a new understanding that would make humanity stronger in the face of whatever threats the universe might hold. With Admiral Gorkal. The Calrathi stared at the humans in silence. Then, to everyone's surprise, Kravzar placed his fist over his chest in a gesture of respect. "I have never seen combat like this," he said, his voice carrying a new tone of admiration. "You move like nothing I have ever witnessed, Admiral." Gorkal stepped forward. "Captain Miller, it seems we have greatly underestimated your species." Ethan nodded, too exhausted for diplomacy. That happens a lot. Gorkal's mouth parts formed what they now recognized as a genuine smile. Not anymore. Not with the Kalrathi.